Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's himself, George, joined once more by Sam for the final spoiler discussion for season 1 of The Last of Us. Of course, episode 9, Look for the Light, has now aired. It aired last night whilst we were live talking about the Oscars. And Pedro Pascal was also at the Oscars, and they made jokes about people turning off Sky to go and watch The Last of Us. But here we are doing another spoiler discussion, another video. I'm tired. It's been a long few days. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm tired too. It also has been a very long few days. Although, I mean, you've had more to do, I say, especially in the last 24 hours with the Oscars stream. So fair play for getting through that and then for doing this tonight. So
Yeah,
appreciated.
I mean, listen, it's The Last of Us, right? So Dave came on in a tux last night, and you're not in a tux, so I'm sorry he's won the fashion sense war.
Mm-hmm.
But I have at least dressed up. I'm not in pajamas and dressing gown for this video. I am, as I said, it was a very late night. It was a very good night. And that marks the end of our Oscars coverage. And sadly, tonight sort of marks the end of The Last of Us coverage, kind of to a point for the temporary while until the season 2 comes out. There's certainly some talk in town about are things in production, are things not in production. It's going to be very interesting talking about it, finding out what other people think. But before we get into that sort of stuff, we want to hear from everybody at home. So if you are watching, if you're watching it not late live, you're watching it later on, please do comment your thoughts. Comment your thoughts on season 1. The series is done and dusted now. The whole thing's been done. We want to know your thoughts. If you played the game, what you thought of it as an adaptation. If you've never played the game, what you thought of this as a show, the structure, what it meant. And let us know those. And if you like this video, we've got a whole Last of Us playlist now. We've got all of our spoiler discussions. We've got reactions. We've got interviews. A lot of things on there that will probably get stuff growing as the years go by. So that is on our channel homepage. And if you want to follow us to find out about what other videos are up to, what other stuff we're up to, there's a lot happening, even though I just said we've finished the Oscars and this. Go get us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. And we've got a link to Redbubble in the description below where you can pick up some merch. But aside from that, Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot. What were your thoughts on the opening scene? Ashley Johnson. Let's go.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I knew she was going to be here. And I think was it said before that she would be Ellie's mum or not? Because I think in any case, I was pretty confident that was going to happen anyway.
In the trailer, they had her holding the baby, so it was sort of like put 2 and 2 together, but it wasn't official, but it basically was.
Yeah. Anyone, with a brain cell would, figure it out, I think. So, yeah, I loved it. I really did. And I think one thing that I can't complain about because, especially for audiences who don't know this story at all, really their reactions to me are what matters more than my own because I know the general story. And as great as it is to see things be replicated or things be put onto screen that, I played in a game years ago, I know that's happening, and so I lose a little bit because of that, because I'm not shocked or anything. I can be shocked with the way that's presented to us and by any new things, but in a large sense, I'm more content because I'm like, oh, do you know what? This is a great story. It was done very well. It's translated to TV really well. That's great. So when something like this happens, and it's happened throughout the series, where there has been new scenes, brand new elements of the story that we didn't know about or changes, that's when I'm more excited. And it's not because I think the other bits are boring or anything like that. It's just because it's new. And I don't know that. It's like finding this secret chapter of a book or something, or a hidden secret in the game. Oh, you did this, so you've unlocked this part of the story or something. So yeah, and getting Ashley Johnson to play the character was just kind of like the cherry on top, I think. And I was saying, her voice is so recognizable. And to me, because she is the heart, as much as Joel is the heart of The Last of Us in this story, Ellie is as well. And in the games, you really you stick with her. And then I'm not going to go into Last of Us Part 2, but I mean, that really is Ellie's story as well. So, yeah, it was a wonderful surprise, although not too much of a surprise that this was going to happen.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one that I think because it was in the trailer, and if it hadn't been in the trailer, you would have been like, oh, we've had Noel Dandridge appear, we've had Jeffrey Pierce appear, we've had Troy Baker appear. we'd assume we'd get Ashley Johnson, and I'm glad that was something they did put in the trailer, because that would be something that everyone would be asking every week: is Ashley Johnson going to get a cameo? Blah blah blah. And I love the fact it's not a cameo. To me, it's a role, and to play the role of Ellie's mom. And as you said, it's like a secret book of a chapter. When this came on for the first time watching it, and I was like, oh my, no, something horrible is going to happen. I think it might have been yourself that said last week that every time an infected has been used in this series so far, it has normally resulted in like a main character dying, or like at least an important character dying, which is a really interesting mindset that, again, we have a singular infected on screen in today's episode. It is the opening, and it's responsible for the death, potential cure, and putting the events in motion of the series. And I just think it was such a smart way of opening. And the one thing I thought, without doing Easter eggs and whatnot, the house that she's in on the farm, yes, it looks like a farm, looked a lot like the house from The Last of Us Part 2. I'm not going to draw any comparisons and say Easter egg this and that, but I just kept thinking of that, which is really strange because it doesn't really mean anything. But I loved how they played the opening, and kind of in respect of that as well, even by I say explaining how she's immune. I love that that's something they have chosen to do. I don't know how the idea has been there that this is how we planned it. You know, she's died with her mom. This knife that has been very important across this series. Now, obviously, I've been rewatching it across 9 weeks. I knew the importance of the knife today. Sorry, when I watched it in January. So I've been rewatching this season, knowing how important that knife is for her as every week goes by, and it is the only thing she ever inherited from her mom, which I think is a really interesting thing for them to include across the season and sort of as we get to where we are today and moving forward. And I just thought the opening sort of 5-10 minutes I thought was perfect. And when we spoke about Left Behind, I remember talking about it's like an origin, and it's not. Especially, or was that last week? Sorry, I can't remember which week. But this like completed Ellie's character arc, that we know exactly what happened to her as a baby, why she's immune. We know what happened to her, why she was bitten, how people found out, and we've covered her journey. And if you didn't know the ending of today, you genuinely might believe she might not have made it out. And I think that's what was so important, that to save that scene, this could have been the opening scene of the entire show. It would have still functioned as well in the first episode as the last. I say maybe not functioned as well, but the actual the functionability of the scene would have worked for that episode still. And I'm glad it obviously wasn't, because we needed the opening we got. And obviously with this one that comes in, it really plays up the importance of Marlene, which I think in turn helps her character depth, who is someone that hasn't had the opportunity to be explored as a character, which I'm glad they did at least a little bit today.
Yeah, I think the latter half of this, I think pretty much since Sam and Henry, I feel like the shift to Ellie has really been more heavier. Especially in like her development and where she's come from. And I think having additional content is helpful. Of course, with anything, we don't get too much of it. We don't want to be stuck in an area where, we're never going to go back to. And I know we've kind of done that once with episode 3. I think Marlene is interesting because I always wanted to know more, and I didn't really know her full motivation aside from, oh, well, this person's gonna help everyone, and kind of that dilemma. I think seeing actually her with is she called Anna, Ellie's
yes
mom?
She is, yeah.
I think seeing her with Anna just gives her a bit more, because she just says, oh yeah, Anna was my friend and all of that, but there doesn't seem like there's a lot of connection with Ellie. And at least seeing these scenes, seeing that she was there from Ellie's beginning, essentially, and that they kind of were back together years later, and then up to the end of this episode, I think Marlene seems just more complex than she ever was. And even though it's still not a lot, and I would still kind of prefer if maybe there was more, just to see more dimensions of her. I think you can definitely see that there's some form of internal struggle, but it feels like she's so good at pushing things down. I mean, the way that she treats Anna at the beginning, is not sensitive at all, and she's adamant that she's not going to kill her, and then when she does, it's in a such kind of, I can't say it's brutal, but it's in such a quick and
It's ruthless, isn't it? There's no conversation.
It's not emotional. It's not, we've
It's
known
like
each other our whole lives.
do you remember when Kathleen killed the doctor earlier in the season? It's almost like that walking far distance, go and do it, get it done, and not a contrast as such between them, but certainly with this one, at least you can see that it's probably that she knows she can't talk to her, that if she wanted to talk to her, she probably wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I think kind of in line with that, with what happens with Marlene, it really opens up the moral compass debate around Joel and what he does this episode. I mean, we'll get into that later on, talking about morals with a character like Joel. But it enables you to connect more to what happens later on. And I just think as well, for this world building dynamic, when Marlene picks her up in the first episode, I knew your mother. Or, I've known you, I'm on the dropped off the school. Everything starts making sense because of this. And it's kind of like watching them grow up from afar, knowing that it's not her child. She doesn't want to damage it. She can't bring it into her routine, but she can keep her safe. Even going back to Left Behind, when Riley says, I asked Marlene if you could come with me, and she said no. There's so many little things that have built up to this moment. I think it is genius for them to have actually done this scene.
Yeah, and I think Marlene questioning Anna about her bites, and now kind of knowing what happens and seeing that, it does make you think, oh, right, well, you can kind of see more, I think, in episode 1, where the cogs are turning in Marlene's head about, well, I remember this, and maybe I didn't totally believe what Anna said then about being bit after the delivery of Ellie. So I think it's really interesting to kind of like put those together, and it would be great to see kind of the first and last episode back to back, just to kind of like get that comparison, to see Marlene more, because these are the only points where she appears. But no, I think this additional kind of selection of scenes is just really helpful for the plot, and I love that we just, Ashley Johnson's just really, really good. I know she's like an experienced actor anyway, and to get some of her, I mean, she manages to sell everything when she's on her own. She spends the majority of the time on it by herself.
Yeah.
And you do want her to survive. I was like, oh no, it's not going to go well. And it's just so cute to kind of just see her with Ellie, and no, but horrifying, because it's like, oh well, this is like the only time they're going to get together. And so there's so many questions that could have been answered. There's so many questions out there, but I mean, they left in what they needed to, and I think it then, like I said, goes back to Joel and his kind of decisions and what's going to be done and what's not. Marlene, did go with Anna's wishes and take Ellie, and yeah, she shot her, but then she made the promise. What's she going to do? So yeah, the ending of this show and the ending of the game is just so kind of important, because it's not exactly how you would think it would go, but it opens up so many doors and a lot that you wouldn't even think about, which is why there's certain things that happen in this episode that make you go, oh, like maybe don't do that. Like I would think twice, rather than like your head will not think about it, like just going with your heart, because that can lead to some shit.
Yeah, I mean, kind of talking the episode about the structure of this episode, I thought was, again, exactly like the final, once you get past David in the game, boom, we're in the city, hospital, done. I was kind of in a really nice way surprised. I mean, people were moaning about the length, that it was 45 minutes. I thought they got the pacing absolutely perfect. Not the pacing, sorry, the pacing. It's been a long few days. What I kind of loved with this, and I'm with them on this, when you play the game, I know you've not played it for a while, but when you get to it's not Salt Lake City in the game, but wherever you get to, you get like, it's the final time we're going to fight the infected, and you get like the bloaters, you get the clickers, you get all of them. That functions great for a game, and I'm so glad they didn't need it in this episode. They didn't do it in this episode. We went straight through to the hospital. We're building up the relationship with Joel and Ellie, that they're starting to realize that their days might be numbered between them, and ultimately neither of them wants their relationship to end. I love the approach to the writing of this, in that they wrote everything around the fact that Joel is going to find out Ellie needs to die in this episode. And I feel that from page 1 through to the ending, they absolutely nailed on what their structure was going to be for this. And I think the big inclusion is that giraffe scene that, I saw the featurette on the HBO channel today, and they spoke about it, that, Craig Mass said, we needed this in from the game. It's a massive moment, and watching it today was great, because when I got the early screeners in January, obviously it was, you get the cut, they're on the studio, then it's like they're in a zoo with green screen, because it's a real giraffe. And I actually laughed, there's a big debate happening online where people are saying, oh, look, the giraffes are fake. They literally filmed it in a zoo. And I think there's already some behind the scenes now which they've released to sort of quash that quite quickly. But just getting that scene, and again, they're building up their relation. If you look at last week was like the finale of their adoption, right? That they've had this adventure for a few months up to this point today. They've eventually got to Salt Lake City. They're out of winter. They're in spring, maybe. I don't know. But where they left last week and where they picked up today, you can tell they've obviously had this incredible relationship throughout. And I just felt that the giraffe scene was the best way to show that in a couple of minutes. And obviously then the revelation of Joel about trying to commit suicide. Now, I don't think that is in the game. I might be wrong. I don't remember that at all in the game.
I don't either. And I think I definitely would have remembered. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've not remembered, or at least not, remembered correctly. But with that seems like such an important part of Joel's development and character that to include it anyway, I think is really interesting, regardless of whether it was in the game or not, because, you can understand it. I can certainly understand you have thrust into this world, which is not your world anymore. Your daughter's dead. You've got no home. You've got nothing. I've had like conversations with people where they're like, "Oh, if it goes post-apocalyptic, then nah, I'm gone. I'm checking out. I'm not doing that." Like, because there's people who will fight and fight and fight, and there's just certain people who be like, "Well, no, I'm not doing that." Like, if it's over, then it's over. And all those things are, of course, like purely hypothetical, but it's interesting to kind of then see characters go through that and kind of say, "Oh, well, I thought this in that moment," and I feel like I've not mentioned it in a while, but I will mention Walking Dead, because there are characters in that who do decide, I'm not going on, and then there's some who decide that they don't want to, and then they get stopped, and then there's a lot of kind of grudges because of that, and so I can imagine with Joel that there's a lot of, at least there's so many conflicting emotions, especially with flinching. It kind of makes it seem like there is some greater universe workings going on to make him not do that. But I mean, I think it just showed that he didn't really want to do it. And I don't think Sarah would have wanted that at all. I know that's not said, but I feel like if I was Joel, I would think that at least at one point, is this what my daughter would have wanted? So I think that inclusion is just super interesting, especially after something like the giraffe scene, which for me is one of, if not the most iconic scenes of the game, of that first game anyway. Like, it's such a breath of fresh air, and it's so hopeful because you don't get that very often. Especially something when it's so beautiful. You come out of winter, it's spring, you see green, you see these animals. And it's before you go on this like massive kind of, well, it's not massive, but you go on this whole divergence to get to the hospital, and then there's like that whole, is that where like the underwater tunnel is? And then that's what then leads to the Fireflies getting them, because they just managed to make it out, and that happens. As much as I love that, in my mind, I wasn't like, that's not going to happen. I was like, that is not going to happen here.
It works for a game because it's the epitome of, we've done this for 12 hours now. Let's do it one last time before we take you to the finale. Let's see the Infected one last time, and you just can't make that jump from game to series with that. It's not going to work getting it on a script and having to play that moment out. And I think it just lessens the danger of the Infected, because again, we've seen them so sparingly the last few weeks. When they have been used, they've been used to such good effects. And it does create fear that when we see them, that, oh, they're going to shoot them out of this, they'll be fine. It never feels like that with this series because they've gone out of their way. It's like a wrestling term, isn't it? When you put someone over, it's when you make them look strong and whatnot. And by having these issues, these final moments of people, we get that. We've got Tom Jones in the comments. Lovely to see you as well. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts on the show. Anything you think we're missing, do obviously bring it up. But kind of talking about that, I mean, the one thing I'll say which is sudden, bit easy, but I'll let it go, is how we get to the hospital, which is look, a flashbang knocked out, boom. Now, obviously, because we know where it's going to go, it's fine. I'd be curious about the non-gamers who haven't seen that. Again, I don't have an issue with it. They've got a lot to wrap up in this episode, and we kind of spent 10 minutes with Ashley Johnson, 10 minutes in the hospital, not in the hospital, sorry, the draft areas. We need to get to the chase and kind of the hospital stuff. I mean, I want to ask you, how did the sequence flow on the series for you first time today watching it? That from the moment he wakes up, there's no pissing about, there's no waiting around. It is, Joel wakes up, sorry, Joel, we need to kill Ellie, I'm going to kill all of you. I was so worried when I saw that for the first time. I was like, how are you going to do this? Again, I thought they had it done perfectly.
I'm like torn because I agree, and I think with what was there, I think it was done in kind of the correct way, but at the same time, I just kind of wanted more, and I don't know whether part of me expected to see a bit more, and I think because you get additional hospital stuff in the second game, not seeing any more than that, but because you get that, in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe there's going to be like a little bit more, you might see a bit more. I don't know if they'll put us kind of like, when we were with Marlene at the beginning of the series and it was her isolated, maybe we'd see more of that. So in my mind, there was probably a bit of disappointment, I'm not going to lie, but I think in terms of moving this right back to just Joel's perspective, like, I get it because it needs to go quick because it needs to, go hand in hand with not thinking about things, but going with your emotions and not thinking about your actions. And I think in season 2, if they do things like the second game, then it's going to make this scene or this sequence of the show way more effective. Because I think it's a whole hand on head, oh shit moment. I'm like expecting that to happen next season. But I thought it was done fantastically well, and I think the idea of using, the non-diegetic music over his rampage and putting that up way more than anything that you're hearing there, I think it was such a fantastic choice because, you see that could have been just very easily action sequence. You hear the music, you hear everything that's going on there. But here it makes you feel like you're in Joel's head a little bit, and that you don't care. Anyone who's in front of you, you are shooting, you are killing. I don't care. I'm getting to this person. Nothing's going to stop me. I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliantly made.
No, I'm kind of with you on that. I'm just going to quickly bring up a comment we've got by Martin. Evening both. What a fine episode. What a series. I didn't play video games like zombie movies programs, but The Last of Us was as good as any series I've seen. That's how good it was. I'm with you on that. And I will do some final thoughts when we get to the end, just reflecting on the season as a whole. But my thing with the hospital, so again, with the early screenings, it was a work in progress, the finale. The last 4 episodes were all work in progresses. So they had a lot of temp music, soundtrack from the game over the top. Watching it today, I know they've just released the soundtrack on Spotify today as well, so I can finally listen to that across this week. The series, it's about 2 hours long, 66 songs, 2 hours long. I loved what they did from, again, Marlene's fear of Joel. How did you didn't survive because of her? Marlene knows, and I think Marjan said this in the interview. Marlene knows how dangerous it is that Joel's forms an emotional attachment to someone. She knows that's danger, and straight match him out, get him out, move, shoot him. And I love that because ultimately, although she does care for Ellie, she is a leader of this group of people. She's technically military, I guess, to a point, rebels. And what I kind of found fascinating alongside it is she knows what Joel is like. And she said, you're the last person I ever wanted to be indebted to.
Mm.
And I love that you just have this moment of fear from him. And just even when they're marching up, we know he's going to retaliate. We know he's going to do something. Anyone will know this. But just when he just stops to test them for the first time, I know he's reading the plaque to see, what floors he needs to get to. But how Pedro played this scene, how this moment was edited, the cinematography, the choice of shots for the dead bodies and what they do over the coming minutes. It was like the final level of the game in the space of about 30 seconds. But I think it's so important because we don't just need to see Pedro Pascal running around with a gun killing people. It's not John Wick in the sense that this isn't an action series. This isn't a show that's been about showing insane action set pieces, killing people, fighting people. As you said, this is this sort of what have I done type moment. And this rampage he goes on is brutal. And I said the bodies on the floor, people pleading for their lives, gutting them with knives when he's out of ammo. The way they shot it, the way it was structured, the way it was written, I thought was genuinely some of the best TV of this year. And as a finale goes, you have this leap. We've seen Joel tell people across the year, I've done bad things in the past, I've killed innocent people. To him to wipe out an entire almost faculty of what is, a military group in one episode. And obviously where it leads to, try not to jump ahead too much, but we got the scene with the doctor. A lot of memes on Twitter today. I'm not going to say anything more than that. But even the choice...
It was at that moment he knew he fucked up. Yeah, that's what I've got in my head. Like,
what I love is they credited the name. They didn't call him Doctor in the credits. He got the name the character does. I'm not going to talk about the second game. So there's a formal credit to a character's name. But it's the lingering shot of that body on the floor with his brains blown out. And I'm sat there thinking, okay, insert like Terminator theme. Like we know what this means. We know who this means is coming. I thought they even had that because the last thing I could have done with is let's chuck in a cameo. Let's have him plead. I've got a child or something like that. It never did. It was, I'm not going to let you take a headshot pop. No questions. That's no emotion.
Yeah, it's the important thing is to treat this character like Joel would treat anyone else. This is absolutely no one to Joel, that's what makes it key because you put too much emphasis on him, more questions get raised, and like, why is that happening? I think the only thing that would make it seem is that final shot, but you see in the hospital, you do get some close-ups of some of the dead people, so it makes it seem like it's another one, but it just seems like there's one extra second or something. It's a bit too long that you're on that, and for some people, it might just think, oh, whatever. Maybe he was the one person who could have changed everything, and that could be the only reason. It really makes me want to talk about what could / is going to happen because it's just so exciting to me. It's really exciting, but it's a choice. It's such a fatherly choice to do. It's such a parental choice to then go and you're saving your child. It doesn't matter. Like, it's your child against the world. You're going to pick your child. There's very few parents, I would think, who would, voluntarily let their child go. And especially after everything that they've been through, what Ellie's done for him, he's in a way in debt to her, without vocalizing that or anything. She's in debt they're in debt to each other, and they protect each other, and you see that in how much the relationship has grown through the dialogue. I think the dialogue and the cinematography in this episode has been one of the best. I think cinematography wise, I think it's the best since, I don't know, like I think probably episode 3. I think episode 1 and episode 3 to me were the best looking episodes of the show. But this episode, from every single different location that we're in, all the different types of shot that we've got, everything just looked so good. And so getting kind of like these dark corridors and that surgery room, which is poorly lit because they don't have a lot of energy to actually make it like an actual a room would
They've
be.
got the blue gowns though. They survived the apocalypse.
Oh, they had some just hanging in the back. It's just just some nice clean. But I love it, and then I love the whole like lead up to, what is actually going to happen now, and does Joel leave her? Does Marlene convince him? Does what's going on? And again, I would love to know. So viewers like Martin, I love seeing Martin's comments because they really are from a place of I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I'm just reacting to what I'm seeing on screen for the first time, and that's really amazing because that's what I wish I could kind of go back and get those reactions again because I didn't know. So yeah, I would love to know like if you want Martin, but if you like, what did you think of like this ending? Were you surprised by what then ended up happening? Because I don't think you can really say from when you start playing this game that's how it's going to end.
No, and even the ending, right? I mean, if you strip it down to the mechanics of the game, the ending itself is a shootout in a hospital. It's not big. It's not extravagant. It's not a skyscraper. There's not hordes of infected. It was the right level for the story that the game had earned, and that being translated into a series, I think it actually worked even not better on TV than the game because that's unfair because it's a very tough level, that game. I remember playing it the first few times I played the game. That's a very tough level. Just the non-stop coming back at you, the military. And I love that we got little bits of that when he's got to hide behind the walls and the doors like Will used to have to do. But just as you said, like the approach and how it is going to go down differently for people. Now, the big thing that I'll talk about my dad, how he watched it later on, because his main conversation point came from the actual final scene.
Right.
Mainly because he thought that Tommy's town was actually all the cannibals. So that was a bit of an awkward one to explain. But the actual, even the cinematic cut of the game before Marlene's killed, you're in the car with Ellie and you've got that brief moment. Oh, did he leave her? And I love that again, it's something that translated into the game. And it's just credit going back to the 2013, 10 years ago. The storytelling for a game was so much more advanced than it ever needed to be. And I genuinely think this has redefined how gaming has been, how story-driven games can be and will continue to be in the years that have followed. And I think that's what's made this so much more exciting, that just certain things translate on screen so well that maybe even if it didn't translate like that in the game, they might have done it this way still if it was a show, because it just creates that extra bit of tension that maybe we haven't had. Because I don't think at any point of Joel on his rampage, anyone thinks Joel's going to get killed. Of course they don't. We're seeing him. That's the reason it's montaged in that way. He's a killing machine that's on his spree. It's his most dangerous moments are when he's emotionally vulnerable, and that's what's going to cost him. And I love that it's such bollocks in the car. It's like, there's loads of you. They didn't need you. Oh, by the way, there were raiders too, and they got there as well.
And you slept through the entire thing.
Yeah, and she doesn't believe it straight. And credit to Bella Ramsey as well for making that performance work on screen physically as an actress. With a game, not to criticize motion capture, how gaming works, but it's a lot easier to provoke and make this sorts of things. But when you've got humans doing it, it's like, how do you make her believe? Do we think she knows if he's lying or not? And I love that there is that intrigue there. Now in the feature on YouTube, they've kind of said that Ellie doesn't believe him immediately, and she's almost pleading with him so she can just believe him, even though she still doesn't believe him. And I love that that's their approach to it still. And I'm jumping a little bit past the car now, but again, it makes sense because Joel is a terrible person. He has never been a good guy. Yes, he's a protagonist. You play as him in a game. You followed him. He's not a good person. And especially when the moral compass question is, it's exactly as Marlene says, is this what Ellie would do? And we all know the answer is no. She would sacrifice herself to save humanity. And in turn, I love the question it raises to Joel, that Joel's not going to let himself lose another daughter, and live past that. And that's where that genius of that scene earlier came from, where Joel sort of says to, time didn't heal it. Basically, you did. You didn't need to say it. It's there in the voice. And I love that that's the dynamic they've gone with for this. And I think it works for the ending, that it makes it believable. I'm just going to quickly bring up a comment by Martin, though. Hand over to you, Sam. No idea what to expect. Fun episode. I enjoyed it so much. Perfect. Great writing, great acting, great everything.
No, very good. I mean, I love that. That's Martin's reaction. I'm sure other people have different, things. I've seen, people. I've not because I didn't watch the episode too long ago. I've not seen many reactions. But I've heard lackluster views for this episode, which in a way I get. Yeah, I know in a way I get because it's not balls to the wall. But I think a lot of series, a lot of shows put too much pressure on the final episodes or episode to be kind of a culmination of things, but it has to be in an explosive way. And I don't believe that needs to happen at all. It's like I used to get really frustrated with Doctor Who for like, oh, it's Bad Wolf, oh, it's Torchwood, oh, it's gonna lead to the end. And I'm like, or they could just end up on another place and just do another thing, and it might be a bit bigger, but it's not actually kind of an overarching thing. I think that can be a bit too much. But I think we were saying about how kind of the game translates to this, and I think I love that, especially when The Last of Us came out. There was that whole discussion, and I think it still is there today, but definitely not as much about online multiplayer, single player kind of stories. That's kind of on its way out, not really kind of being done. But the issue was just that not enough good stories were being told, and the technology was going further than the development of actually trying to tell a good story. Because video games, traditionally didn't really have much story to them. Very, very simple things. But the tech upgrades, you expect stories then to do it. So the fact that this got such acclaim is totally warranted because it was doing things that no other game was doing, and it was making you think, it was making you emotional, it was making you be part of this story like you couldn't be for any other video game. So the fact that 10 years later it works so well here still, in this different medium, I think is just fantastic. The whole the morality of Joel is just so tragic because because you've seen or just as the outbreak was happening, that he wasn't a bad guy. He was a very normal guy. He had maybe like some bad tendencies, but nothing majorly bad. But it's how you react to living in a world like this, and to know that he's gone through so much crap and has had to like do what he's needed to do to survive. That unfortunately doesn't make you a good person. And so I think that's why, when we've talked about kind of different perspectives and getting more insights into different groups and people, from most people's point of view, they're the good person in their story, same as Joel in his. I think he realizes that he's done bad things, but I don't think he would actually say, I'm the worst person ever or whatever. I think if he truly thought that, he wouldn't want to be around Ellie. He wouldn't want her to be like him or anything. But you see in this episode all that good that kind of is there from how Joel was with Sarah. And I think that's what's so tragic, is that no matter what, he's going to be the villain in someone else's story. And that's, like you said, that's unfortunately at some point going to come back to bite him in the arse. So it's great to hear the bullshit. I think it's so funny when he's like, oh yeah, well, there's dozens of them and all that we talked about. But it's just this lingering sense of, oh, I feel like we're not out of the woods yet. But yeah, Bella Ramsey's performance, great as well. You get just different levels to her that you can't really get in the video game. I've not played the remastered version, so I don't know if tech has updated. I don't know if that goes further.
There's a
but even
whole new
yeah,
not structure, like character models is the term.
Yeah. But it's like when she turns around in the car, you could take that as her, I don't believe you. I'm sad that Marlene's gone. That
I'm tired. There's
I'm
different
tired.
things.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough or something. I wasn't special. I couldn't save people. Like, there's so many different things that she could be thinking about, and you kind of see it all there. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought it, because the car scene is important, and kind of even following that when they're going back to Jackson as well. We sit there on the horizon of the city, and I love that she tells the story about Riley that, this happened. And I'm once again going to praise them for not showing and filming that. I appreciate some might want to see something like that, but I don't think it's needed to convey the message. I don't mind a scene, like, I'm not saying, oh, it's violent. No, I don't care about that. It just, we did everything we needed to know. And the revelation of what happened there is for Ellie to tell in this moment. It's her opening herself up to Joel. It's her confessing to Joel, probably the worst thing she thinks she's ever done, and what's put her on this journey it has, and the guilt she has through that. And then at the same time, it's just Joel's outright, nope, this happened. I wasn't lying. And I just love the camera just lingering on Ellie. Just okay. She knows he's lying, but as I said, she just wants to believe he's telling the truth, even though she knows he's not. And I know that obviously is going to be potentially a big thing. And just even the sudden ending, like, done, season over, enjoy, come back in a couple of years where season 2 happens. And that's what was exciting for me. Is like, when I was talking to my dad, he's like, well, what do they do now? I was like, they're at the town. He's, yeah, but they're all cannibals. I said, no, that was last week. I said, this is the town with his brother. And I get why he might have been confused with that, to be fair, but I love that, again, credit to the second game, they were able to switch some things around. The first game, we had the fact we had Jackson episode 6, makes it easier for the audience to see where they are in this finale, where they can expect them to be for a few years. And I just kind of loved where it ended. It wasn't big, it wasn't bombastic, it was just, it's like just a lie. And I love that that's going to be a massive thing for future seasons, and it's going to be exciting for people that are waiting, that have never played the game. Now, obviously, we know season 2's in development. I believe on the podcast for today, the official HBO one, they've actually spoke a lot about season 2. They confirmed Bella Ramsey's playing Ellie, which I don't think anyone in the world was surprised by that's happening in season 2. That'd be pretty catastrophic if she wasn't. But in line of that, they think filming could start at the end of this year. I think that's a bit.
Oh wow!
I think that's a bit soon. I think next year. But yeah, that sort of wraps up the episode, the final spoiler discussion. What I want to kind of do something is put you on the spot. Just your thoughts on season 1. I mean, we've been doing this for 9 weeks. Like, how are you now compared to 9 weeks ago when this was just getting going?
I feel satisfied. I feel like thirst has been quenched. It's been enjoyable, surprising in numerous ways. I think, people will complain about the lack of infected, and I may have to agree a little bit that I may have liked to have seen more kind of action set pieces with infected, but I think there was enough to make you understand the world that we're in with this show. I think the acting has been absolutely impeccable. I don't think there's any one person who's either let the team down or anything. Like, nothing to me seemed inauthentic or unbelievable. The story was solid anyway. What they did in translating it to television, again, was great. The additional scenes or the different points of views or the changes that they made for the sake of telling the story on TV to make it work, I think were all amazing choices. For me, episode 3 is still the standout. Again, I mean, it's such a character piece, of which most of these episodes are, and I think that's what may have thrown people about this show, is they may have come in expecting another Walking Dead, expecting another. I don't know if the 100 was what they actually happened in that, but I think that was post-apocalyptic, and that was kind of like fighting and stuff in that. But like, this isn't that. There's definitely tense scenes, action, some horrifying moments, but at the end of the day, it's the journey of two characters and I don't want to sound like one of those people, but just like the physical journey, the emotional journey, all of that, because they come out of it. Joel comes out of it better than where he was, well, after flashback anyway. And Ellie now, I can't say she's in a better position. I think she's in a position where she's got family, but what has she lost along the way? And with this lie that's been told, what's that going to do for her? Because when something is built on a lie, I mean, that's it. If it crumbles, it's just going to crumble down. So I can't wait to see how they interpret that in season 2 and where they take the story, because I can't say I'm totally convinced that they're going to go beat for beat with the second game here, but there's a lot there that they could use. And I think with kind of how good this season's been, I can say with confidence that I think season 2 will be similar, at least if they've got all the same key people involved. That's the main thing. That's the key to its success. You change, showrunners or producer, anything like that, then immediately that's a red flag to me. But yeah, aside from that, it's been almost perfect. Almost perfect.
No, I'm with you. To me, I mean, I know this is technically the second time I've seen this show. So, once in a binge session, the second in a weekly drop. I will always maintain that watching a TV series weekly is better long term. You get to build up thoughts, theory, think, let things have an impact on you. When you just binge it, you just absorb it. And certainly in the 2 viewings I've had, I've appreciated watching it week to week more. I've enjoyed watching it when Dad hasn't seen it. Obviously, naturally talking with you, which has been great. People have been commenting as well. And kind of what's important for me is that approach. And, I don't want us to say, oh, in the game, this, in the game, that. As a fan of the games, I'm more than buzzing with how this has been, with what they've done, how they've approached a series like this, the respect they've had for the source material, what they've done new for themselves, what they've adapted into TV, the changes they've made whilst minimum have had maximum impact, certain things they've wanted to drop off from. And to me, they've just earned this, not blank slate for what they want to do, but, if you have played the second game, you know what the story is. They have now confirmed, I know for sure, that season 2 will not be the entirety of the second game. I think everyone could have worked that one out. They've said that there will be some small changes. I'm assuming not changes in story to the big narrative moments, but there will be points of view from multiple characters. And I believe they've also said that they would, I'm assuming in the same way Bill and Frank, other characters, supporting characters that come in, they would also like to put more perspective onto them. So I'm suddenly thinking that the second game could be bloody genuinely could be 3 seasons, probably 2 seasons. But it's just left me in this state where they can do what they want. I think this has been one of the best adaptations I've ever seen. Not video game adaptation, because there's basically none that are good except for this. I'm just talking adaptation as a whole. I've not seen, again, an original creative from source material be on board at the top level, be okay with changes, completely switched, even going back to casting when there was racist abuse being put at Gabrielle Luna. I mean, I know no one really took issue with Pedro Pascal, but there was a very, very minute corner of the internet, as there always is, woke because it wasn't necessarily, white Americans. I don't want to get into that stuff at all, if I'm being honest, but for how the turnaround the show's done, for the choices they've made in casting, even going back a few months when we were rightly saying, we were nervous about Bella Ramsey in this role. It's a big role for a teenager to take on board. Her performance across this entire season, I will be devastated if she isn't nominated for an Emmy for Best Actress. Sorry, I think Emmy does both, doesn't it? They do because they do mini series and normal series, don't they? I mean, obviously this isn't a mini series because season 2 is confirmed, but it's going to be interesting following this. But I just think, for me at least, they've absolutely nailed it. They made one of the best TV shows I've ever seen in my life, for me, honest. I know I waxed lyrical in that review in January, the spoiler-free one, but just, again, having a second viewing of it, I believe they've announced a home media release, so I will be picking that 4K up, and that will probably be a review in July if there's actually special features to do a review on. But yeah, it's just been an amazing few months. And the fact is, we're in mid-March. I remember coming at the start of January saying, oh, yeah, I've seen the best show of the year. Now, I know we've got The Mandalorian happening every week at the moment, which is bloody great as well. But I'm just loving what we've had these few months. And to me, I'm just in the clear with, I trust them for what they want to do to the next series. Like, they've earned my faith. As you said, as long as the showrunners don't change, the soundtrack don't change, they've got things in such a good way of this series. Leave them to it, as they say, let them cook, and that's what I'm excited for.
I mean, they've got a whole new audience than they ever had before with just the game.
Yeah,
they may have lost some people maybe along the way, but I mean, they've now got scope to potentially make this, to franchise it essentially.
Audience, sorry. So the viewing figures are out for last night. It grew again. The ninth episode now has 8.2 million views on HBO, which is the highest of the series so far. And it has now overtook House of Dragon for where it was at the weekly stage.
Wow.
So if you're taking over the biggest show in HBO history's prequel spin-off, which was as popular as the original series was, and in the space of 9 weeks, episode 1 had 3.9 or 4.1 million views. Episode 9 has had 8.2 mil. That's domestic, obviously. To double the audience and retain the audience for 9 weeks is incredible. And I genuinely think this is going to dominate the Emmys. Now it's overtook Game of Thrones in audience views, as in House of Dragon. HBO would be dumb not to push this 1,000,000% now. Strategic. I know we don't really do Emmys, I think, because I've had the Oscar mindset. I'm in this silly awards mode, but I'm so excited to see what this is going to, as you said, franchise it. I wouldn't be surprised. I know we're going to have, there's going to be an online game this year. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Warner Brothers so Neil Druckmann, what else would you want to do in this world? Or what stories could you set up? And going back to Game of Thrones, HBO's done that to them. They've got an IP that they think people will go and watch. I'd say at least do 3 seasons before they branch out, but they could easily branch out in this world. People would watch it.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I said this to you, but I definitely said it to one of my friends after I played the second game. But with the way that the second game ends, in my mind, I was totally right, they could literally make 2 different games from here on. Before I really knew about a show, it was well, you can follow certain characters and go on their journey to find fireflies. You could go on that journey. You could go with another character and follow their journey, trying to get back to reality. I'll say that I'm trying to be as kind of non-specific as possible, but
I don't mean
there's different things there, and with what they do with in the games with the passage of time and stuff, I think that could have been really interesting. And once you have different perspectives, you can really kind of go anywhere with it if you make the characters A, either likable enough, or B, give them enough backstory that it makes you want to see what then happens with them. And I would have been totally fine with that. So I think as you've said about season 2, essentially not even being all of part 2 in that, it could be season 2 and 3, then I feel like the end of that would then be the right point to say, well, right, there's actually an opportunity here where we could actually leave.
Third game out.
There could be a third game. We could have opportunity to leave certain characters, maybe, especially if actors get bigger and need to go somewhere else.
Got to film the Mandalorian Mandoverse finale film, kind of Pedro Pascal, because of commitments.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you've got the world built up and you've got at least some characters to work with. I know we're still pretty limited at this stage with how many kind of recurring characters there are in this show, but with time going on and with another season or 2, I definitely think there's scope there. Plus, even things that we've not seen, you could literally go anywhere else in the world and be like, what happened here? Who survived there and what happened? Or how did the outbreak happen there?
The Last of Us London. It'll be the first time we hear infecting the word bruv said in the same sentence, and it would be fantastic TV.
And you just get them, you hear the echoes of the clickers in the tube or something.
See, again, sign him up. We know, and there's unlimited potential for what they want to do, and that's what this series has opened the doors already. Even with those cold opens, the TV show, how they reacted at the time, the immediate bombings. There's so much potential for what The Last of Us could be, and I'd say again, with one season in, we've had an incredible season. Let's see what they're cooking. Let's see how season 2 is, and then I do think if season 2 lands, which I hope it will, I think there'll be a lot more Last of Us moving forward. I think as an IP, I mean, how many spin-offs has The Walking Dead got now? 8, and no one gives a shit about any of them.
Well, 3 people. And this is the thing. We spoke about the clickers at the very beginning about the clickers and how iconic they were. There's so many kind of visually recognizable things and audio as well from this series that you now can say that and people will know. And I think nowadays it's way more harder to set up new worlds, for audiences because they're so took with what they have, which is why when things like a Twilight come out or the Hunger Games, it's like, oh my God, we've actually got something, because from the audience that they had as a book then became something much bigger. But the whole world was there because there'd been stuff written down. It was like ancient text which was suddenly brought to life. So I mean, video games to television adaptations might be kind of
It's gonna happen. We've got
it's
them all
going to be
in.
more happening more. Like,
Assassin's Creed's at Netflix. God of War's at Amazon. Fallout has finished filming at Amazon.
Fallout's having a show.
Yeah, already been filmed. Christopher Nolan's brother,
wow.
who did Christopher Nolan's brother's doing it. Oh God, Jonathan Nolan, and Lisa Joy. Is it Lisa Nolan? Basically, those two worked on. Oh God, what's the HBO series that just got cancelled with the season to go? Westworld. The ones that did Westworld are doing Fallout, but that's been in production for a couple of years already. They're probably thinking, if it's not good enough, they're probably thinking, shit, The Last of Us just came out. Because there's going to be so much more pressure on every single one of those. And it's great for the sector. If people want these ideas, I hope studios take their time, take their patience. Look, The Last of Us took a lot of years to come out. It took time. There was a pandemic. There were failed film adaptations. But look at the final product. Look at the outcome. We've been gifted with this, and it's for the industry to look at and use this. Let's not rush these adaptations. Let's not do this. Super Mario Brothers in a few weeks genuinely could be an amazing film. Unfortunately, with one terrible voice actor.
Yes.
But that's going to be massive, and it is quite exciting still. The game to screen stuff is a possibility of wonder, and I think Last of Us is going to change the game. But just like its source material, The Last of Us, I think, is the best that it has to offer. It has the best source material for anyone to dive off, and bringing in that creator as the exec was the right decision from the get-go. And fair play to Neil Druckmann for sticking with it, for Craig Mazin for being involved, HBO for letting them make this, for doing what they can. It has been an amazing 9 weeks, and kind of with that, save these videos. Sam, do we have anything more to say? Because I am, not because of the Oscars, but I am almost on the verge of rounding out.
No, I mean, I guess, I mean, we've said a lot about, everything that we love about this show. I mean, I think the final really thing for me is, Bella Ramsey, Pedro Pascal are, really, if they didn't work, then this show wouldn't work. They truly brought Joel and Ellie to life. Great. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson did what they needed to do for the game, and they're going to be loved forever because of it. And now, it's kind of like the next stage, not the next generation, but I mean, now we have Pedro and Bella who've done so well with this. And I know especially Bella's had some backlash and stuff, but I truly feel like she's proved herself. And Pedro has done so as well, with his another father role here. And I'm just so glad that they were a part of it, and that we are going to get more. And I think that is the thing to be thankful for. If it had ended here, fine. You know what? That's a great season of television. That's fantastic. We had that. Great. But yeah, we get to move forwards, and we get a brand new season. And I feel like only from here, it's just going to kind of expand and change more. And that's what I'm really excited about. Follow part 2 of the game as much as you want. Use as little, but I'm very secure with what this show is, and how it's going to share these stories with us as the audience. And I just can't wait, and I'm so glad that we managed to do it. And want to thank you for letting me talk about it with you.
No, honestly, thank you for coming on, for being the co-host for these weeks. Very grateful to have that as well. You've been on all of them. Which I was surprised by, but you've been on when you've been ill, you've trooped through it, and I want to thank you for that as well. And as I said, anyone else that's been involved over these few months, whether you're commenting, whether you're watching, whether you're messaging or giving feedback, is always appreciated. And I'm going to miss this. Monday nights are going to be a bit different. Got nothing to do now, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, who knows, but one day The Last of Us will return, and until that, I mean, if there's other stuff, if there's an announcement, if there's casting announcements, maybe there'll be pop-up videos, who knows. But in the meantime, I want to thank everyone watching at home. As I said, Sam, I think you want some more for coming on, for being involved in this series. It's been amazing. It's made these Mondays so much better and so much funner to watch the series, and to everyone in the comments. So thank you all. Let us know your thoughts on the series. Again, if you're not watching it live, you can let us know your thoughts. We'll reply to them. I know that the finale's had a lot of people talking already, and I'll be excited to see what you want to do. And if you've liked these videos, do consider hitting the subscribe button. We still have weekly TV show videos, also starring Pedro Pascal. You might have heard of it. It's called The Mandalorian. They're every single Wednesday. So obviously we're on season 3 now. We've got 6 more episodes, and that is absolutely flying. The fact there's already been 2, and it feels like there hasn't. But our Pedro Pascal weekly double bills come to an end. A short time they were, but a great time nonetheless. And he was on the Oscars last night. That's 3 in a week, technically. I've seen him on now. He's been on Hot Ones. He's been on BBC. He's been everywhere. So you can still fix up your Pedro Pascal hype wherever you want to be. But in the meantime, you can get us on social media. Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. Link to Redbubble in the description below. It's weird ending this mini-series because, Sam, we're still going to have you on more videos. I'm not going to be like, sorry, Sam, I'll see you when season 2 comes out. Piss off. Of course not. I'm not
Bye.
You're like, thank God. I get my Mondays back. No. But listen, it's been amazing doing these. And once more to everyone at home, thank you all. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
See you later.